Hey, Daily Show host Jon Stewart responding after Chris Wallace corrects him for calling Fox News viewers the most consistently misinformed.
I make fun of conservatives or Republicans because I'm a liberal partisan ideologue. I make fun of liberals or Democrats because I want, as part of my brilliant yet cynical strategy, to maintain enough credibility to continue making fun of conservatives and Republicans. And that narrative of conservative victimization is the true genius of what Fox News has accomplished.
Comedian and Fox News contributor Steven Crowder says there's more to that, and he joins us right now from Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, Steven, as you've heard Jon Stewart, and keep in mind he's just a comedian, over the last week or so, talk about, he's liberal, but he's fair. Is that show fair to conservative voices like yours?
Well, no, of course not. The thing is, Jon Stewart said to Chris Wallace, in Hollywood they tend to lean left, but it's not a motivational force. At what point do you say, okay, we have an entire industry that leans almost completely to one side of the spectrum? At some point, it's not chance. It's by design from people like Jon Stewart and the people at Viacom.
All right, so he said that I'm not an activist. That was also a big thing. I just say that I'm a comedy. What I do is much harder. Having said all that, last night his premise was every time Chris Wallace would say to him, you are an activist, and he would go back, I'm just a comedian, they would come back and say, he would just come back and say, no, I think you give me way too much credit. And that's really what's been going on for a week. But you say that you got an email from your manager that shows something a little bit more deep than that. And here it is. This from your manager. On the conservative front, we never book conservative pundits. We stick with conservative politicians, sometimes high-profile news anchors and sometimes religious leaders.
Right. This was an email to your manager right from The Daily Show.
Right. Well, the story behind that was Ben Shapiro's book, Primetime Propaganda, launched, and he asked some conservative entertainers to put a face, some more examples to the undeniable case of anti-conservative bigotry in Hollywood. And so the goal wasn't to attack Jon Stewart, but to, as I discussed with Governor Huckabee on Saturday, show the anti-conservative prejudice at play in the entertainment industry. And as far as Jon Stewart and Chris Wallace, I mean, you're talking about a guy who said poll after poll shows Fox News are the most misinformed viewers. That's not a man going for the funny. That's a man who's looking to propagandize information, regardless of it being false, in order to continue the narrative that he set with his audience regarding conservatives. And by the way, he's a bully. He only picks fights that he knows he can win, with Chris Wallace or with you guys. And not that you're too weak to defend yourselves, but the second you fire a shot back over the bow, well, guess what? He's a comedian now, puts on his comedian hat and makes a wiener joke. It's a moving target that you can't hit. You can't win the fight. That's the only reason he engages.
Here is an example of Jon Stewart's bias. Take a look at how he mocks Herman Cain.
Bills will be 3 pages. If I am president, treaties will have to fit on the back of a cereal box. From now on, the State of the Union address will be delivered in the form of a fortune cookie. I am Herman Cain, and I do not like to read.
Herman Cain did not like that ad, and he'll be joining us next hour to talk about it.
Well, Jon Stewart's funny, he's brilliant, but if his literacy test is the ability to read polls like himself, I don't think he's exactly the authority on the issue.
All right, joining us today from Grand Rapids, Steven Crowder, thank you very much.
Thank you. You look great.
Thank you very much.
I think he was talking to you.
All right.
Straight ahead.
Jorge Ramos is an anchor at Univision News and Fusion Television, and he joins us tonight. Jorge, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I never imagined that I would be on Fox News listening to you criticizing President Trump on immigration, but thanks for inviting me.
It's a matter of the principle, and this is the principle, which is that a country has a right to determine who enters it and who gets citizenship, who votes, who chooses the government. That's what a country is. And I can't imagine how you could publicly disagree with that, and yet you seem to.
No, what I also agree, Tucker, is that we have an immigration problem. I think we all agree with that. There are 11 million people who are here illegally, and they are here because of us. They are harvesting the food that we eat. They're building our homes. They're taking care of our kids. And we have to find a solution. And President Trump, surprisingly, I don't trust him, I don't believe him, but surprisingly in this meeting, he said he wants comprehensive immigration reform. You and I remember since year 2000 that whenever we say comprehensive immigration reform, that means legalizing 11 million people in this country. And if the president wants to do that, I'm all for it. However, I'm not sure that tomorrow President Trump is going to come with a tweet or with an interview and change again.
Let me just stop and challenge your premise, which is deeply disingenuous, and that is that it's somehow our fault, corporately all of our fault, that 11 million people snuck in the country are now demanding to become citizens. It's not. Hold on. It's not. No, that's not true. It's not because of me. It's not because of most people I know. It's because a small number of employers wanted to pay less for labor, and the Democratic Party wanted new voters. I didn't do that, and there's no reason that I should have to live under a government controlled by people who came here illegally. Why should I?
They're here because of you and me. It's simply a matter of supply and demand. They're here simply because there are jobs for them, and also, we have to admit, because in Latin America they make maybe $5 a day. And they can make that exact amount of money here in just a few hours. But we are responsible for them. And
so
then,
we're responsible. So in other words, so because this is a successful country,
you and I are responsible. We're responsible for them.
Because we have taken the time to build a functioning country, a clean, safe country with a working justice system and a thriving economy, then we are somehow morally required to let anybody who wants to come here come, and we can't complain about it? How does that work exactly?
No, because every time you go to a hotel, every time you go to a restaurant, they're helping you. They are working for us.
No, they're not working for me. They're working for companies that want to pay less. That's why they hire them. And the owners of those companies make a lot of money. And we get to pay higher taxes in order to support them living here.
Just for a while. But, for instance, the National Academy of Sciences recently conducted a study, and they concluded that all immigrants in this country, they contribute more than $2 billion every single year. This is an immigration surplus. And not only that,
that's an absurd number.
You can laugh about that.
I'm laughing because I know a lot about this subject, and that's a fake number.
Those are the facts. Should I trust you, or should I trust the National Academy of Sciences?
Right,
I'm sorry, but I believe the National Academy of Sciences on economy.
But I'd rather than throw around fake numbers, I'd rather get to the principle, though. You make a fair point, which is supply and demand is driving this. There are people who want to hire illegally, for sure. You're absolutely right there. It's not me, but some employers do. But why should American citizens, who by and large are not responsible for illegal immigration, have to live in a country where people who sneak in illegally get the vote and determine who runs their government? I don't understand. No other country would allow that.
We all benefit from that. And then, of course, on comprehensive immigration reform, if it's true what President Trump is proposing, and I don't think he's telling the truth, or that he even understands what's happening here, then they might have the opportunity eventually, in decades from now, to vote or not. That's not the issue at this point. We're not even discussing comprehensive immigration.
Well, it's very much the issue for me, an American citizen. I don't want to be governed by people who snuck into the country. But let me ask you this. If you come here illegally, now you're demanding that people who came illegally have the right to be here legally and get citizenship. Why should those people be allowed to bring their relatives from a foreign country? Where does that right come from?
About chain migration. Now everybody's using the term chain migration.
Well, it's the majority of immigration is chain migration,
actually,
so it's not a small thing.
It's called family reunification.
You call it whatever you want. It's the same thing.
Do you enjoy spending time with your family, Tucker?
Well, look, I'm not going to pretend. Look, this is too serious a matter to participate in theoreticals. Let me just ask you: why, if you sneak into this country, should you have a right to bring your relatives?
Let's just say that you do. Well, immigrants do too. They do enjoy spending time with their families. And since 1965, and this was inspired by JFK before he died, since 1965, the policy that we have here in the United States favors family reunification and bringing those who have special talents to this country.
But you're missing it. But no one is arguing, by the way, that DACA recipients have special talents. Nobody's even more DACA recipients.
No, they were too young for that.
Okay,
they were too young for that.
But that's not relevant here. But I'm just saying, I know it's the policy. Why should it continue to be the policy? That's the question. Why is it a wise policy?
Because I think it's a wise policy. I think it has worked well for this country. Just see the number of CEOs, immigrants or sons of immigrants, who are leading major companies in this country. I think when President Trump uses the term chain migration, those are code words. He's really saying, you know, I don't want more immigrants from Asia or Latin America coming to this country. I want to stop that. And I want to make America white again.
What you're doing is throwing... Because what you're doing, rather than engage in an adult argument, using reason. You're accusing people you disagree with of bigotry, which is a little much, actually, considering that you're demanding that Americans who were born here let in people who snuck in illegally and all their family, and if they say anything about it, they're racist.
Let me just say that chain migration,
I get the game, actually, and I'm sick of it.
Migration or family reunification.
Doesn't matter. The principle's the same.
That's the law of the land. Not,
how would you feel if the United States exported the poorest 10% of its population to Mexico, exported the poorest 10% of its population to Mexico, completely changed the mix of Mexico, the politics of Mexico, and undercut the wages of Mexican citizens, and then if anyone complained about it, said, well, you're just a racist, would you think that was kind of a stick-up?
I understand what's happening in Mexico, and it's terrible what's happening in Mexico. I cannot defend, and I do not defend what's happening in Mexico. Absolutely not. Was that your question?
No, that's not the question, but we're out of time, sadly. But I know that we will meet again. All right, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tucker.